Quick show of hands, how many of you would call yourself an extrovert? Okay, that's less. Not you? Okay, well, yeah, I'm an extrovert too. I used to think being social was my superpower until I discovered it might also be my blind spot. For as long as I can remember, I've been drawn to people, their energy, their laughter, the rhythm of conversation. School felt like a blur of friendships, plans, endless talking. I felt alive, connected, and certain I belonged. Who wouldn't love that, right? I told myself I was happy, noticed, involved. What more could I possibly want? As it turns out, clarity. I am Ayaan Mehta, someone who thrives in academics, finds rhythm in music, and meaning in the people around me. Connecting with others wasn't just something I enjoyed. It was something I needed, like oxygen. It helped me feel seen, like I mattered. But eventually, this one question started to follow me. What happens when the very thing that defines you starts to confine you? It was around 8th grade when I first felt the shift. Quiet, subtle, almost unnoticeable at first. My circle of friends, once so large and effortless, started thinning out. Plans that used to include me started happening without me. I remember organizing these movie outings. I'd book the tickets, coordinate the meetups, make sure everyone had a memorable time. A year later, the same group went again. But this time, no one told me. I wasn't just losing friends. I was losing my reflection in them. For months, I tried to decode the silence. I kept scrolling, scanning, overthinking. Every word became a calculation. I smiled more than I wanted to, agreed when I didn't have to. But here's the ironic part. The more I tried to be liked, the less I started liking myself. Looking back, I had slipped into something called omphaloskepsis, which means endless self-inspection. Connection stopped being about sharing myself, but instead about validating myself. Every thought filtered through another question. How will I be perceived? Sociologist Charles Cooley said it perfectly. I am not who I think I am. I am not who you think I am. I am who I think you think I am. Get that? That was my trap, living inside a hall of mirrors. But after a while, I could see myself wanting out, wanting a shift. But little did I know, the shift had already begun. My quest for connection, it didn't start in 8th grade. Long before that, every summer took me far from home, to programs across the UK and the US, new friends, new cultures, and a new me each time. I felt free. I got the chance to reinvent myself again and again. No history, no labels, no expectations. Then came the summer I spent in South India. I interned there for 1 month, made musical instruments from scratch, attended physics of sound classes, learned how vibration ultimately becomes sound. There, I faced a language barrier. Everyone spoke Tamil, and I didn't. But through shared curiosity, gestures, and connection, I managed. It gave me a quiet Eureka, learning that connection doesn't always need language. Sometimes simply sensing is enough. All these experiences made the world feel bigger, richer. Every new place I stepped into, every classroom, every person, every culture expanded something in me. And that's what pulled me towards the idea of boarding school. Not as an escape, but as a continuation of my curiosity. 5 intense weeks at Phillips Exeter Academy didn't overwhelm me. They energized me. I remember sitting at the Harkness table for the first time. It's this big round table, there's no front, no back, no teacher lecturing, just students talking and debating. We were reading one of Homer's texts. It was the Odyssey, I believe. I shared a point, and someone retaliated. At first, I thought he was targeting me, not my idea. But then, it hit me. He wasn't asking for the right answer. He was asking for my thoughts, my opinions, my interpretations, which may have been very different from his. It was the first time I realized how energizing it felt to be taken seriously, not because you're social and loud, but because you're willing to think out loud. Once again, it became a small eureka for me. Pushback wasn't criticism, it was respect. I found myself excited by the pace, the responsibility, the mix of people who thought and lived differently. I became more open, more confident, far less afraid of being wrong. Coming back home, I understood how much I value environments that stretch me and push me beyond my limits. But wanting more didn't necessarily mean overlooking what I already had. It just meant recognizing the version of myself where I am growing, adapting, and learning. Growth, it isn't about rejecting your roots. It's about allowing yourself to expand beyond them. But in the middle of all that ambition and movement, I also began noticing something I had ignored for a long while. The people who had been steady, constant, almost invisible in their consistency, the same ones who didn't drift, didn't disappear, didn't need to be chased. And that made me pause. It made me reflect, not on what I wanted to reach for, but what had been holding me in place. So I'll ask you, when was the last time you looked at the people still here instead of the ones who left? Because when I finally asked myself that question, it shifted something in me. It forced me to actually notice the support that I had been taking for granted, the quiet anchors in my life I had been too distracted to appreciate. The final piece of my Eureka moment, it wasn't dramatic. It arrived on a quiet evening on the balcony in a simple conversation with my mother. She isn't close to everyone, and frankly, she doesn't need to be. She has her small circle, her work, her passion, and her responsibilities. She doesn't get belonging for the need to fit in, but instead from finding self-fulfillment. She said to me, Ayaan, you already have so much. A family that stands by you, a few close friends who care deeply, and some who have just drifted, not disappeared. People are fighting their own battles too. This wasn't advice on popularity. It was perspective. I didn't expect that conversation to stick with me. I just asked her a question the way I normally would, freely, without hesitation, the kind of comfort that only parents can give you. But sometimes the clarity we chase comes from the simplest places. For me, it was in that balcony moment where the clarity finally arrived. After that evening, I started changing small things. I spent more time with my grandparents, my sister. I reconnected with old friends I hadn't met for years, not to fix the past, but to appreciate what we did have. I invested in people who brought me peace, not pressure. Once I started shifting my focus inward, things changed, quietly. I became lighter, calmer, and genuinely happier. I stopped overthinking. I didn't need constant validation anymore. The pressure I put on myself decreased, and after a long while, I felt in control of my own peace. The emptiness faded, and in its place came balance. Connection doesn't always need to be loud to be real. Sometimes it exists in silence. Let me tell you something. What surprised me the most was how powerful the changes were, the changes I made to my lifestyle. When I shifted my focus, I realized that the subtle parts of life are where clarity hides. Music has always been that one place in my life where I didn't have to negotiate my identity. When everything around me felt uncertain, circles shrinking, expectations changing, the one thing that stayed constant is music. Playing the tabla, it wasn't just a hobby. It was my way of transmitting emotions. It grounded me and gave me a sense of belonging that didn't depend on someone else. Music became my anchor, my reset button, and sometimes the only place where I felt completely understood. So I guess it's okay for friendships to change, for people to drift, for life to move forward. Nothing was wrong with me. I accustomed myself to this one mantra, one I learned from my Eureka moment. This too shall pass. And eventually it did. I reconnected with the things I had neglected and slowly with myself too. So if there's one last message I want to leave you with, it's this. It's okay to feel left out, lost, overwhelmed. Just don't lose yourself in the process. Because at the end of the day, the most important connection, the one that never fades, is the one you build within. Maybe the belonging I chased in every circle was always a mirage. The circle I needed to close was the one around myself. Thank you.